My name's Nate Boley, and 20 years ago, strength training changed the course of my life. I built a gym here in Bend, Oregon from scratch that's helped over 1,500 people change their lives as well through strength training. If you want to change your life, head over to benstrengthwarehouse.com, hit the Start My Journey button, and let's chat. All right, guys, we'll see you there. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Steve Dobson here with us again, a physical therapist that works with us in our gym. And we just have a little short podcast for you today talking about a seminar that we have talked about for a while now and are getting it off, getting it going this next Friday. So Steve, introduce yourself again, tell people what you do here, and then we can kind of go into it.
Absolutely, thanks Nate. So yeah, I'm a physical therapist. I've been lifting for the last 10 plus years. Really passionate about being in the gym, lifting weights, lifting heavy weights particularly, and that's where me and Nate bonded and where we ended up in this relationship now, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're really enjoying that. In Nate's gym, my main priority is to keep people in the gym, keep lifting heavy. I'm really specializing in barbell athletes in general and those that really like to push themselves and lift heavy weights and keeping them healthy through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So this seminar we had kind of went through some different ideas, and we decided on the shoulder joint. Can you go into why we decided that one was going to be the best one to start with potentially?
Yeah, I feel like the shoulder is one of those areas where everyone's had a problem with their shoulder at one point in time, especially if they're pushing their bodies, they're lifting heavy weights. You might notice it most in a bench press, maybe a shoulder press particularly, but it also can affect squat. And one of the other main reasons why I chose the shoulder first was just because it is one of those joints that affects a lot of things.
Absolutely.
It affects people's ability to sleep sometimes. It affects daily things you do, like you're trying to cook and your shoulder hurts because you can't pick up a pan because you bothered your shoulder doing something. So it's just one of those joints that is so mobile and so complex that it's affected in a lot of people, and something that I think a lot of people can learn from and benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think is the shoulder the most complex joint in the body?
I think it has one of the most planes of motion,
yeah,
which makes it kind of complex in that sense.
Sure.
It can move in so many different ways. There's a lot of muscles, a few different joints working together.
Yeah.
And then things that kind of contribute to it, like your neck, your upper back,
sure,
your elbow, like all these things that influence it and make it more of a problem area.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, like you said, I definitely deal with shoulder impingement as well. Most of the time it's when I'm actually sleeping on my arm, like you're not supposed to do, but that's the way I sleep, and it affects everything, right? It affects my deadlift sometimes, which is not very cool.
No.
But yeah, so we decided to go with that one. Not that we're seeing an abnormal amount of shoulder injuries or shoulder pain or whatever, but it's just something to keep in mind. A lot of people are worried about their shoulders. So we wanted to kind of dive into that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and it's not like all of a sudden, it's November, December, there's a big spike in shoulder pain. It's just
right.
One of those things that most barbell athletes and powerlifters deal with on a regular basis, or they have some nagging issue that, they've just had experience. Also, if you're out there skiing, do recreational sports around here, you've probably landed on your shoulder a time or two, and that can also contribute.
It's funny thing that you say, a lot of barbell athletes and powerlifters, you're labeling these guys with pain in their shoulder. I've known lots of people that never touched a barbell or weights, and they always. I've met lots of people that have I've never even been to the gym, and I've already had 2 shoulder surgeries.
Oh, definitely.
And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. My mom was always saying, oh, you're gonna hurt yourself. And I'm like, Mom, you already need a hip replacement at 60, and you've never been to the gym ever. And so, you know what I mean? We're all just humans, and everybody's got pain.
Oh, totally.
Everybody's got joints that don't work correctly.
You make a good point, and that's that sometimes people think I'm lifting weights, that means I'm at risk for injury, or more risk than if I wasn't. And that's not true.
That's not true at all.
There's a lot of people in general, if you have a sedentary lifestyle or you're not as active, you can still deal with the same pains that someone that's an athlete is dealing with.
Yep.
And probably more so, actually.
Yeah.
Being more resilient and strong is only going to help you.
I agree.
And the injury rates are definitely not exponentially more if you're active versus not.
I totally agree with that. Now, I'm sure there's some studies out there we could point to that would show that as well.
Definitely.
Another getting off the subject of the shoulder, they did a study about bulging discs or herniated discs, and they took a whole bunch of people from the age of 30 to 80, active and non-active, and they MRI'd all their backs, and they're like, hey, every single person had some sort of herniation, not a or a bulging disc, and a lot of them didn't even know they had it because it wasn't like touching a nerve or whatever.
Exactly.
So, and that didn't mean that was just because you're lifting heavy weights, you're going to blow out your shoulder.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's totally true for the shoulder too.
Yeah.
In most areas of the body. Most of the time, imaging will look different and maybe scary, but it's not something that needs to be scary per se. It's just, it is the way it is, and most people, like you said, don't even know they have anything.
Sure.
They're just training and living and existing and enjoying their life, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing. That's one thing you want to be able to do, right?
Exactly.
Pain can definitely inhibit that type of stuff, especially if it's like a chronic thing where you're always dealing with it. Mm-hmm. But so let's go into like kind of maybe a little bit of what they should expect in this seminar.
Yeah. So the seminar is really going to go more in a deep dive into the shoulder in general. So we'll start off with a brief anatomy overview, just generally giving you the idea of what are all these different factors that are at play. Your rotator cuff is something everyone's heard about before, usually. Maybe not a great understanding of it, but something that you are kind of afraid of bothering, per se.
Absolutely.
And we can kind of debunk some things there regarding, do I need to rush to surgery if I have a rotator cuff issue? We could also talk about that and how that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And then we kind of go into what makes the shoulder complex with the different joints, the different bony anatomy, all the muscles that contribute. How the neck can influence how the shoulder moves, how the upper back can influence it, the elbow, like I mentioned earlier, and then just the conglomerate of muscles that are all surrounding that area, and ones that we may often neglect to work specifically.
Sure.
We don't always need to, but it helps to be resilient in those areas and kind of help you understand these different things that can influence it, that you can make a difference on yourself.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's so funny because like I said, this shoulder injury, actually I think it was a small tear in my supraspinatus tendon back when I was like 20, so like 18 years ago. Went to a doctor and they were like, oh, we need to do surgery right away. And I was like, I don't think so. I'm not going to go. I don't want to do this. First of all, I don't have any insurance, so no. I don't have any money, so no. And third, I am very, blunt-headed or whatever you want to call it, and I'm stubborn. So I was like, I'm going to fix this myself. Long story short, I did not fix it myself, but I did not have surgery. I went through physical therapy. And every time I do the exercises that they say, hey, do this exercise, it feels better. But then it stops feeling bad, and then you stop doing it, and then it's like the circle, right?
Right. And you kind of outlined a classic experience in the traditional medical system. I think around Central Oregon and Bend in general, a lot of doctors are more conservative than I've seen in other areas, which is great.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you should go PT first. Let's not rush to surgery, but you're still going to find that sometimes.
Yeah.
And having someone that's going to be like taking a different look at it and helping you work through that before going to surgery, because even if you end up needing surgery, I always tell people like getting stronger first is never going to hurt you. If you're stronger beforehand, there's certain instances where this isn't true, like you slip on the ice and tear your rotator cuff.
Yeah,
that's different than this.
Exactly.
That's different. We're talking about kind of more chronic, long-term shoulder pain issues that aren't necessarily just happened like yesterday.
Not like you just tore your quad off the bone.
Right.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to do much about that.
Right. There's certain instances where physical therapy, there's a place for certain things, but oftentimes there's stuff you can do to help yourself and do rehab conservatively before you rush into something like a surgery that's going to change your life for at least the next 6 to 9 months.
It could be, surgery should be one of the last line of defense in those types of injuries.
Yeah.
Again, when there's different things where you get into a car accident, slip on the ice, whatever, where you got to go. There's nothing, but they shouldn't be cutting. You shouldn't be wanting somebody to cut into you as your first line of defense.
It's not the quick fix you might hope it would be.
For sure. Yeah, and I've gone through a couple surgeries as well, and I know that for sure. But yeah, I think you're right. There's lots of orthopedic surgeons in the area and doctors that are very much on that opposite side now, where they're like, hey, I do make money off doing surgery, but your best interest is to go get physical therapy first. And if after 6 months we're still not seeing where we need to go, we can reevaluate where this needs to be.
Totally.
So right on. Well, I'm super stoked about on the seminar. Is there anything else you'd like to chat about with the seminar before we wrap this up?
I think the other main thing I want people to know in general, if you're going to come to the seminar, which you should, that I'll also be going through some classic exercises that are just good for building resilience around the shoulder.
Okay.
So if there's certain things like, I just want my shoulder to be as robust as possible, but I don't have a lot of shoulder pain right now, but it's something that I've dealt with in the past. this can still be for you because it helps you understand the shoulder better.
Yeah.
But it also gives you a few things you can just, basic things you can work on. Of course, if it's something more advanced or there's more variables involved, talking to a physical therapist, talking to me about what you can do to help yourself in a more robust way is totally worth it. But I'll give you some takeaways that you can use for yourself and help yourself be more strong, resilient as well.
Cool. I think that's a good thing, to be able to know, just even if something starts to bug you, maybe some little tips and tricks and stuff like that, and tools in your toolbox.
Exactly.
That you can go through before, and but then again, maybe it's some warm-ups. Maybe if you are worried about your shoulder hurting and you're like, hey, I'm going to bench heavy today, maybe I do these exercises to get things warmed up.
Sure.
So there's less chance of that type of stuff.
Exactly. Maybe there's some mobility you should work on prior that just helps take a little strain off of certain areas.
Yeah.
And that can be useful.
So I know a lot of the times with the shoulder, just to go on a little bit more, positioning of the scapulas and stuff like that can make a big difference. Will you go into that at all in the seminar?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about positioning with certain movements, especially, bench press being pretty particular. And,
Yeah.
I think we're good allowing some movement in certain areas.
Sure.
It's okay with certain movements, but some we're trying to be more stable and more in one place to help put the pressure on the right areas.
Yep.
To get the most out of your bench press, you want to use your chest, you don't want to be, using muscles that aren't intended to be used in this scenario.
Yeah.
And one of the other main things I just wanted to point out was, to me, good rehab is basically training in the presence of pain. And I think if you do have shoulder pain, you don't necessarily need to be like, oh no, I just need to quit lifting for the next 4 weeks and let it do its thing.
Yes.
Let it recover itself. I think that's one of the traps that are easy to fall into, is to think that, oh, it hurts, I'm just going to stop for now.
Yeah.
But there's often a lot of stuff you can do to continue to exercise and
Sure.
lift weights and be active even though you're dealing with the shoulder pain. And usually it's these little modifications to certain movements that you might not think about, which is why, people like me exist, that we can just help you keep lifting while you're dealing with them. So I'm also going to be going over some of those general modifications that people can make that are kind of easy, quick hitters that may be like, oh wow, now my shoulder doesn't hurt because I just changed my position in my scapula maybe.
Yeah.
Or I lessen my range of motion just a little bit, and all of a sudden I can do it.
Yep.
So there's lots of things like that are beneficial, and I think a lot of people can benefit from as well.
I really like that point of view. The more, as you've heard all these old people, like maybe your grandparents, your parents, or whatever, like, oh, I can't do XYZ because it hurts. Now, and then they get another injury. Okay, now I can't do XYZ because that hurts. Pretty soon you're stuck to a wheelchair. If that's the way you're going to go down the road, instead of being like, hey, let's work on what we can do, whether that's a quarter, range of motion on your bench press, or half, or whatever it is. Movement is key.
Absolutely.
Right, movement is going to help you, even if you can't do anything with, say, your right shoulder. My right shoulder is bum. Well, not bum, but it hurts from time to time. So if I can't do anything with that right shoulder, I should still be in the gym working out the rest of my body.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I get that all the time. Like, people are like, oh, I hurt my shoulder, I need to take 4 weeks off. Like, what? No, you should get back in here. We can modify things. You can still do body weight stuff. You can still do banded stuff, whatever. It's only going to help your recovery get there as fast as possible.
Absolutely, yeah. If you can try to view, this is kind of a hard mindset shift oftentimes, but if you can try to view a certain pain or injury or discomfort in an area as an opportunity to work on another area of your body, at that point, like, my shoulder hurts, I can't bench as heavy as I want, but I can push my deadlift or my squat, and I can use that energy now toward these other things that I didn't get to before.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity, not necessarily like a, oh no, the world is ending, like I now can't do any of this anymore.
Yeah.
So finding those opportunities to work on things you might not have thought about is a big part of rehab in general.
I can't think of the book's name right now. I'll have to look it up and remind myself and tell you later. But there's a book about like that getting injured is like actually opens up a whole new world as long as you let it.
Totally.
It can open up your mind on different types of things rather than just letting it bog you down.
Totally.
So I can't remember the book, so anyway.
That's all good. I mean, I've done the same thing for myself, countless times. One of the reasons why I'm in the position I'm in now, wanting to be a physical therapist and work with lifters, is because I am a lifter and I wanted to lift effectively and safely but get as strong as humanly possible. And to do that, I wanted to gain more knowledge for myself, but help people learn from my own mistakes when I was early on in my lifting journey. and didn't know anything about lifting weights.
Yes.
And now that I know so much, I want to share that knowledge and help people lift and get strong, but also do it safely and navigate those things when they happen.
And see how much farther they can get than what you could have in your life.
Oh, of course,
right?
yeah. It's
all the knowledge. If you can start with all the knowledge, like how much farther can you get? I think that's honestly why we see these massive amounts of weights being lifted by these really young, small lifters these days. I'm like, dude, there's no way in heck that I could ever do that when I was that age, because I just didn't have the knowledge that was available to them right now, or the training tools as well.
There's a lot of impressive people out there now, and
yes,
it is fun when you coach someone and help someone through something and they're stronger than you and you're helping them realize their potential.
Yeah,
and it's
super fun.
And even though they're stronger than you, you're happy for them.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, that
go
is
as
cool.
far as you can.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, right on, man. Well, hey, thanks for being on the podcast again. Super excited. The seminar is December 13th, 2:30, I believe, is the time frame. Yeah, 2:30, December 13th. We do have a link, which I will put in the show notes for you guys to sign up. There is limited spots, so if you guys do want to get into it, get in as soon as possible. Just email us if you can't figure out how to get on there, and we'll get you on there as well. But anyway, it was great to have you on, and we'll see you guys December 13th.
See you guys then. Thanks.
All right, later. Thanks for joining us on the Go Heavy or Go Home podcast today. We hope you got a lot of value and had a ton of fun. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about what we do, or just have a ton of resources at your fingertips, head over to benstrengthwarehouse.com and hit the Start My Journey button. All right, guys, until next time, go heavy or go home.